My great-uncle was curator of the museum, and he was a meticulous chronicler of the Meuse Valley. It seems to me now that each thread I pulled then was also the thread of history. For all that we did not live in the past, almost all of us in the family were involved with and committed to the politics of our time. And that's how I came to New York in World War II. I have always loved the garden. The flowers I put in my tapestries, the roots and the leaves I portray, I know with the intimate knowledge of dirty fingers. I raised my 3 children to love the garden, and now my grandchildren know a weed from an herb. But there were times here in New York when my needle and my rake were replaced by my pen while I worked for the French language newspaper, Pour la Victoire. And then one day, all my labors seemed done, and I went to live in Haiti. I was fascinated with voodoo and took up ethnology to better understand the people around me. I sympathized with the young Haitians who wanted to use the cultural richness voodoo brought to their country and wished to translate the old terrors into new forms of art. I saw all around me in tourist shops when I first arrived embroidered items with European flowers and patterns to which the gifted black girls could not relate. So I decided to teach them how to embroider designs from their own rich folklore. Whatever trace of paternalism I may have had when I got there quickly disappeared as I gradually understood the depth of involvement of the free African in his own world. In the 10 years I was in Haiti, the trend of native embroidery gradually changed, and I was always pleased to meet, going up or down the mountain paths, a woman unknown to me with a hibiscus straight out of one of my tapestries, embroidered right on the front of her dress. When one or the other of the 30 women who worked with me had trouble understanding the design of a bougainvillea or the sharp twist of a turned-down leaf, we took a walk in the garden, and I taught them to see and to translate. I do not, in my New York atelier, work with many people. My students were really dedicated to their work. They were clever girls. Most of them had studied art and knew a bit of embroidery before they came to me. The stitches that we use are really commonplace: chain, buttonhole, extended cross. But what we do want to do is to really portray as closely as we can the things around us, like a tree, like a branch, like a person. I really use my needle like a brush, and my thread is anything that can be pushed through the eye of a very big needle. All my backgrounds are hand-woven, for that remains the prerequisite of a tapestry or decorative panel. I do very little sketching, only a few lines on a piece of paper or directly on the material, and that is to ensure proper balance in the design. I've always pushed the girls to work with as little design as possible. The choice of texture and color in the thread proceeds as the work advances and as we play different shades of a color. And this is very necessary because harmony is very easily destroyed. And when a piece doesn't go right from the beginning, I find it infinitely better to scrap it rather than to fuss with it. Now I don't plant things anymore. I use imaginary plants quite often. I just grow a little tarragon and a few chives in a window box. But all the veins of a leaf or the frill on a petunia petal, they are in my mind's eye. I don't even have to look up when I draw. And what really fascinates me is the face of strangers that I meet in the subways, my neighbors, and in railroad stations, for instance. People are off guard. Their faces are naked and they are revealing. And this is really what I like to see. Whatever I do because no matter what I undertake, I have always had the gift of complete involvement. The banners that we are now looking at were designed to be used after the fire which destroyed the Church of St. Mark's in the Bowery. They're used in the restored parish hall during the liturgical year. They are, in a sense, cartoons in felt for definitive work commissioned for later in the church itself. All my liturgical work is highly symbolical, and since the parish is very active in human rights and ecological protest, they reflect those ideas too. Newspaper patterns were made before cutting out the felt. Then the felt was glued on felt, but the gold material, so that it would not ravel, was fused onto the felt with something called stitch witchery. It was ironed on, and that material is available in most notion stores. There are lots of good embroiderers, but few of them are artists. It's necessary to make new and bold designs from ancient elements that relate the feelings we have towards our own times.
This is a project of the Foundation for Independent Video and Film Incorporated, with funds provided by the New York City Department of Employment under CETA Title VI, with the FIVF Media Documentation Pool, Emilio Murillo, Bill Sparrow, Bob Wiegand, and production assistants Karen Bailey and Melissa Rosen.